We're pre-flighting with Jay.
So with pre-flighting, I'm big on finding a system that works for you. And the way that I'm about to show you may not work for everybody. If you can take something from it and use it by all means do. I'm 2 years in the Army, so my knees and my back don't feel good. So I try to go squat and stand as little as possible. So what I'll do is I'll start from the top, checking my neck, coming down. First major component I come to aside from the hoop and the neck is your starter. Be careful with these stainless steel cables, they will poke you. You can get a thread, I got poked on one earlier. Make sure it's attached, I follow the string down. And I usually stop at the first bar because these are the first attachment points for your harness. Make sure that the buckles are attached and that they follow back through on themselves. If you want to see more on how it's done, it's in the manual, but I'll be happy to show you as well. From there, I'll come down to behind the motor. And I got the cross supports here. I'm checking the swing arm attachments, make sure they're good. Make sure the motor mounts are in place and they're good. You'll see some electronics or some wires in here. This is usually part of the kill switch. You're looking for any obvious damage with that. I like to pinch the fuel tubing because if you pinch it and it still flexes, it's pretty good usually. It might still have a pinhole. You have to keep an eye on that. And I got the cross supports here. I'm checking the swing arm attachments, make sure they're good. Make sure the motor mounts are in place and they're good. You'll see some electronics or some wires in here. This is usually part of the kill switch. You're looking for any obvious damage with that. I like to pinch the fuel tubing because if you pinch it and it still flexes, it's pretty good usually. It might still have a pinhole. You have to keep an eye on that. This is also a good time to prime it. Behind the motor is a prime button. One little squeeze till you get the fuel up in there. I'm looking for leaks. I'm looking for air bubbles that pop in at the same time. I then come across. I like to work down and laterally. So I'm coming across. My next thing I got is my spark plug wire. Now, some spark plugs, and they'll cover in the motor maintenance class, are the threaded to the top. I don't like them. They don't like them here because they can come off. So I'll pull this off, take a look, make sure it's not broken, make sure it's good reseated. Make sure that my tachometer here, hour and tach meter, is well secured. I hang the throttle cable here because when I do stoop down, I want to look at the throttle cable on the carburetor as well. And it's about that time to stoop down if the knees hurt. So when I get down here, I'll check the prop nut. It's the first thing closest to me. Next, I'll go over here to the belt. Make sure it moves freely, it's not torn. Since I'm at this level, I also have head bolts, so I'll take a look at the head bolts, make sure they're present. And then over here on this side, which will be the right side of the engine, you will actually see the carburetor and the throttle cable. I'll actuate the throttle, make sure it moves to its full length. It's not falling apart. I'm looking for any obvious cracks, excessive oil. This is a 2-stroke, so you will get oil from time to time. I'll make sure that like this right here is a little loose, so I look to see where it's wiggling from. Over time, there's a boot in here that will start to crack, and this airbox can come off in flight. So I look for that, and I make sure that it's in good shape, as tight. Coming down, I have the clutch assembly, and here's the clutch right here. Make sure that any of the cross-check is still intact and not been messed with. Exhaust bolt, my exhaust. When I come over here to the exhaust springs, make sure they're completely attached. We have some extra oil. I have some wetting here. So in between the cylinder head and the crankcase, you'll see, you can actually see part of the gasket. Some of this oil will come when those blow out. Sometimes they don't. This one, I believe, is coming from the union, this joint, the slip joint that's right here, a ball joint. So I'm not too concerned about that. But on these springs, you want to make sure that you have the safety wire in place. And the safety wire is here so that if the spring happens to break or pop off, it doesn't go through your prop. That's the whole idea behind that. On different Vitarazi models, most of the ones at the school will have these double joints. So I think the My 19, the first version of the My 19, was a single pipe here with just the one slip joint, so it cracked. So I put my hands on and I see if there's any cracks that I notice or any extra carbon buildup. I'm at the level here of this gooseneck for the tensioner for the neck. So I'll feel the net as I'm going through, and if I need to tension it, I check it right here. Fuel cap's behind. Coming to the other side, it's basically the same thing. We have another tensioner over here. And we also have a motor mount for the silencer piece. Make sure the silencer's not loose. Continuing down, there's a zip tie down here, and I put this on here because this bottom part, the netting, was actually the way it is been heated and during a hard landing, it was popped down. So that I put that on there. But at the time, it was popped down. Okay, I need to adjust that. I don't want it going through my prop. I'll look to the other side. I'm looking for any cracks in the wells or the tubing. Make sure that's all good. That completes the back part of this. So then I'll spin it around and come to the front. And on the front, I start at the top and work my way down again. So I got the top, yep, I checked that. Now I'm looking at the handle, making sure that I have some, like it's at the compression stroke. I'll look at my harness. This is where I also look at my harness. If it has a Velcro closure, I open it. So to do these, I will open everything and unbuckle everything before I even start. At this point, I open it. I'm looking at the quick links. I'm making sure that the bridle here, this is the reserve bridle, that it's in good shape. There's no phrase cuts, tears, or anything else that goes along with it. And then as I am satisfied that it's good, I will close that cover up as I come across to the other side. It comes along the back here, comes down the side, so that one right there is good. I'll close that up. And because I'm talking through it, it takes a lot longer, but when you run through and you get familiar with the gear, it goes real quick. Now that I'm down over here, I have the swing arm since I'm on this side. I'll lift the swing arm. It gives me a chance to look at my carabiner and my connection point here and physically touch the screws and make sure they're not loose. The safety strap comes down. Make sure that I don't have any excessive wiggle from the swing arm. This one has the practice reserve, but at this point then I would come on down the bridle to the reserve, make sure the pocket's attached. Here on the side, we have a part of the harness that attaches to the side frame. I make sure it's properly secured. Coming down to the front, when you're checking the pocket for the reserve, you're going to make sure you don't see any of the orange or the color of the fabric showing. You want to make sure it's all tucked in. The bridle's tucked in. The handle on, let me pull this off real quick. The handles tuck in, and it's real easy, and it happens. You'd be surprised at how often that handle will pop out of its little retainer. Even on my machine between flights, because I'll hit it, I'll bump it, my swing arm swings down and kind of moves it out of the way and just pops it loose. This is the check here. This is the common piece I was talking about. So that'll come, one of those will come out. You can make sure that they're tucked in, and then this green piece of what looks like a trimmer line is tucked into their pockets. It's not spring loaded, so it's not going to just fly out. Once I'm done with that, I'm about to transition to the other side of the check down, but I checked this clevis, make sure it's safetied in, and follow it down. Now I'm on the other side of this exact same check, just for the opposite side. I lift the swing arm, make sure I don't have excessive play, check my carabiner, come down, put the hands on the screws. I've already checked my bridle, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm looking here. This is just a pocket. So now I'm starting to get into my actual harness piece. So I will take and I will buckle as I move through. I will buckle all my buckles and my restraints. Moving down to the waist one, there's a buckle. Got a leg strap, buckle. I give it a tug, make sure it works. And then I complete my check to the bottom. I'll lift it up, make sure that's zipped. That pocket, I guess I have some more sewing to do. That's just a pocket where you can stuff a bag. Now you're probably wondering, well, why do you close your buckles? I own my machine, but my machine does stay here from time to time. It looks just like this, but it's a little newer. somebody may have picked it up thinking it was a school machine by mistake and say, oh, okay, well I'm gonna get it ready, and then they go through and do something with it after I pre-flighted it, and more than likely the first thing you're gonna do is unbuckle everything. So when I come back to it, if I tap one of my buckles that are undone, I know for a fact my machine's been messed with, and I need to do a full thorough go over it. So that's why I do that. And then I will pop these back up. I'll usually just put them in the carabiner for the time being, just to get that up off the bottom. And that's pretty much how I complete my. Oh yeah, well, you don't want to leave that dangling. I'll leave this set in the seat, but most of the time I clip it into the carabiner. And just set it there like that.